I turned 16 on a cold Tuesday morning in Portland, Oregon. It was the kind of morning that felt like it should have been special, a milestone birthday, maybe with balloons, a surprise breakfast. Even just a hug or a card. But when I woke up, there was none of that. Just the dull thud of footsteps in the hallway and my mom's voice calling my name like it was any other day. Isla. Come downstairs. We need to talk. Something about her tone made my chest tighten. I threw on a hoodie and padded downstairs in my socks. Where both my parents were sitting at the dining table, Stephen and Colleen Morgan, dressed for work, coffee cups in hand. My dad didn't even look up. My mom gestured for me to sit. It's time we talked about your living situation, she said, like this was a business meeting and not my birthday. I blinked. What? My dad sighed and finally looked up. You're 16 now, Isla. And with everything going on with Brielle and the baby, we've decided it's best if you move in with Aunt Rosemary. I stared at them. My heart began pounding. What are you talking about? My mom's voice was calm, too calm. The baby will need its own room, and Damon has already settled into the guest room. Your sister needs space. You're old enough to be a little more independent. Rosemary said she'd love to have you for a while. 1,000 thoughts swirled in my head. My sister Brielle was 22, 8 months pregnant. And her boyfriend, Damon, had lost his job recently and had moved into our house temporarily. I knew things were crowded, but they were seriously kicking me out. But this is my room. My home. Why can't the baby share with Brielle for a while? Dad shook his head. That's not ideal. Newborns cry all night. It wouldn't be good for your sister. Damon's in the guest room. We don't have another option. I opened my mouth to argue but stopped. I could see it in their faces, this wasn't up for debate. They had already made their decision, probably days ago. Probably even told Rosemary before they told me. My hands were cold. My throat felt tight. Okay, I whispered. They both looked a little surprised. I think they expected a tantrum, or tears. But what was the point? This wasn't a home anymore. It hadn't felt like one for a long time. They smiled then, relieved, like I'd just made things easier for them. We'll still pay for your school stuff, clothes, food, my mom added quickly. It's not like we're abandoning you. Funny. That's exactly what it felt like. After that, they stood and began talking logistics like I wasn't even there. I numbly went back upstairs, sat on my bed, and stared at the walls of my childhood room, the faded posters, the books on the shelves. The little glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling I'd stuck up when I was 9. Everything I loved was here. And in a few hours, I would be gone. They helped me pack. My parents. They actually helped me fold my clothes and zip up my suitcase like this was some kind of family road trip. My dad even joked, Rosemary's place has way better views anyway. I didn't speak. I didn't cry. I just moved. Brielle wasn't home. I hadn't seen her all morning. Looking back, I think that was deliberate. Maybe she didn't want to be there when it happened. Or maybe she just didn't care. By noon, my suitcase was in the trunk, and I was sitting silently in the back seat while my parents chatted about work in the front like nothing was wrong. No birthday wishes. No apology. No warmth. When we pulled up to Aunt Rosemary's cottage just outside the city, she ran out to greet me with a big smile and open arms. Happy birthday, Isla, she said, wrapping me in a hug. And that was the first time anyone said it to me that day. My parents barely waited for me to say goodbye. They didn't hug me. They didn't look back. They just drove off. And there I stood, on my 16th birthday, in front of a woman I hadn't seen in years, holding a suitcase full of clothes and a heart so heavy I could barely breathe. It was the moment I realized. This wasn't just them making space for the baby. This was them choosing to erase me. Aunt Rosemary's cottage was warm, the kind of warm that comes from more than just a heater. The walls were painted in soft hues of green and yellow, and every corner was filled with art, plants, or little curiosities collected over time. It smelled like peppermint tea and cinnamon. She gave me the guest room upstairs, which overlooked the woods. There was a big window, a shelf full of novels, and a comforter that didn't smell like detergent, it smelled like someone cared. I didn't say much that first evening. She didn't press. She just made me soup, lit a candle, and told me to rest. The silence helped me think. Too much, maybe. That night, lying under the softest blanket I'd ever felt, I replayed the morning again and again in my head. The way my parents said it so matter-of-factly. The way Brielle had conveniently disappeared. The car ride. The way they hadn't even hugged me goodbye. What hurt more than anything was how unsurprised I felt. Like I'd known this day was coming, and still, it broke something inside me. The next morning, Rosemary greeted me with coffee and banana pancakes. I forced a smile, trying to be polite. But when she asked how I was feeling, I cracked. I don't understand how they could do this to me, I whispered, the words barely escaping. Her smile faltered. Do what, sweetheart? I hesitated. But then I told her, not everything, but enough. About the birthday. About being told to pack. About being left here like a forgotten box on someone else's porch. And that's when her expression changed completely. She looked, confused. Angry. Betrayed. Wait. She stood slowly. Stephen said you asked to come live with me. He told me you hated being in the city. That you wanted quiet, space. Somewhere to focus on your studies without distraction. He said it was your idea. I stared at her, stunned. What? No. I had no idea this was even happening until they told me that morning. I didn't ask for any of this. She went still. Her hands clenched at her sides. Then, without another word, she picked up her phone and walked into the other room. I didn't hear what was said at first, just muffled voices. Then, shouting. My aunt. Sweet, artsy, calm Aunt Rosemary, screaming. You lied to me, Stephen. You lied about your daughter to your own sister. How could you do this to her? On her birthday? I sat frozen at the kitchen table, staring at the wood grain as her voice thundered through the walls. I'd never heard her like this. I didn't even know she could yell like that. When she came back out 10 minutes later, her face was flushed and her lips were a tight line. He said you were excited to leave. That you couldn't stand living with them anymore, she muttered, almost to herself. I just shook my head. I didn't say anything like that. I didn't even know I was going to be sent here until that morning. They said they needed the room for Brielle's baby. Her eyes narrowed. And the guest room? Damon's in it. She scoffed. So your parents chose an unemployed 20-something over their own daughter. That was when something in me snapped, not in rage, but in clarity. It all made sense now. They hadn't just replaced me in the house. They'd rewritten the narrative entirely. Lied to make it look like I wanted this. So no one would question it. And worst of all, it worked. Even Rosemary had believed it. For a while, we both sat in silence. I could see she was trying to stay calm, to not make this harder for me than it already was. But I wasn't going to let it slide anymore. I may have stayed quiet with my parents. I may have swallowed every dismissal, every time they praised Brielle and looked through me like glass. But this? This crossed a line. I want to tell the truth, I said softly. I need to. Rosemary met my eyes. Do whatever you need to, Isla. You're safe here. That night, I didn't sleep. I opened my laptop and typed everything out, all the years of quiet neglect, all the times I was overlooked, and the cruelty of being discarded on the day I was supposed to feel celebrated. I hit publish. Not because I wanted revenge. Because I wanted to be heard. By the time I hit publish, it was 2:43 a.m. I didn't tag anyone. I didn't name names. But the post, titled When Your Parents Treat You Like a Guest in Your Own Life, laid everything bare. I poured out 17 years of being overlooked and discarded into those paragraphs. I wrote about the day my parents told me to pack my things, how they helped me zip up my suitcase like it was a favor, how they dropped me off at my aunt's like I was an Amazon return. I wrote about the lies they told, to me, to my aunt, to themselves. I didn't expect it to go anywhere. I didn't even post it on a big platform, just a well-known forum for teens and family trauma. And a repost on a private community blog for quiet kids from loud families. But the pain must have resonated. When I woke up the next morning and finally checked my phone, there were hundreds of notifications. The post had been picked up and cross-shared. Comments flooded in, some kind, some shocked, some furious on my behalf. But the overwhelming message? You didn't deserve this. What I didn't realize was that someone in our extended family must have seen it. Or maybe it was just the right combination of keywords and timing, either way. The wildfire had started. By mid-afternoon, my cousin Eliza messaged me on Instagram. Isla, is this about your parents? Everyone's talking. Uncle Ray is furious. Uncle Ray. My mom's brother. One of the few family members who never took sides but always seemed to know something was off. If he was mad, that meant others knew too. And then came the texts. Dozens. From people I barely talked to. From people who'd never asked how I was doing before. From relatives across the country. From my parents. My hands shook as I opened my father's first message. So this is how you thank us for everything? You attention-hungry brat. I always knew you'd betray us eventually. Then another. You embarrassed us in front of the entire family. I wish we never had you. Each word cut like a knife, but in a strange way, it didn't hurt the way it used to. Maybe because I expected it. Maybe because I was done trying to make them love me. My mom's messages were more guilt-ridden, laced with the kind of martyr tone she'd always used. You've ruined your sister's peace during her pregnancy. We did what we thought was best. You agreed to go. We're being harassed now, Isla. Do you feel good about that? No. I didn't feel good. I didn't feel anything. Just numb. But then I opened a different kind of message. From Grandpa Everett, my father's father. We weren't close. Not because we didn't like each other, but because we hardly saw one another. He lived in Seattle. Spent most of his time traveling after retirement. But he had always sent birthday cards, even if my parents conveniently forgot to give them to me sometimes. His text was short. Call me when you can. I read your post. I'm sorry. That was all it said. It brought tears to my eyes. Not the words, the genuineness of it. How rare that felt. I showed everything to Aunt Rosemary. She read each message carefully, her jaw tightening with every insult my parents had sent. Then she said something that chilled me. They won't just be angry. Isla. They'll be desperate. I didn't understand what she meant until later that evening, when she got a call from my grandfather. Apparently, the post had made its way through the family grapevine all the way to Grandpa Everett. And when he called my father for an explanation, my dad lied again, said I exaggerated. Made it all up for attention. But Grandpa didn't believe him this time. Because Rosemary backed me up. She told Everett the truth. Every detail. The lie they told her, the phone call, the breakdown. And Grandpa? He didn't take it lightly. According to Rosemary, he said, if they treat my granddaughter like a burden, then they can forget about their inheritance. I had no idea what that meant. I didn't even want anything from him. But apparently, there was a trust. A big one. And my parents were heavily relying on it. Now that trust was in jeopardy, and for the first time in my life, I had something they wanted more than me. Their reputation. By the next morning, the tone of the messages had changed. Not the ones from my parents, those were still sharp, manipulative, and filled with veiled threats disguised as guilt. But the rest? The rest were like warm lights flickering on in what had always felt like a dark house. My cousin Maya messaged me. I always wondered why you looked so sad at family holidays. I wish I had asked. Uncle Ray's wife, Aunt Justine, wrote. If you ever need anything, a place to stay, someone to talk to, my door is open. Your parents crossed a line. Even my old piano teacher from middle school sent me a short DM. You always played with such emotion. Now I know why. It felt surreal. All my life. I'd been quietly fading into the background, the invisible child, the afterthought. And now, for the first time, people were noticing. Seeing. But that visibility came with a cost. Around noon. Rosemary's landline rang. She answered on speaker, something she rarely did, and when I heard my mom's voice, sharp and cold, I froze. Rosemary, what the hell did you tell Everett? Only the truth, my aunt said evenly. The truth your daughter told me. The truth you tried to cover up. You've humiliated us. You've let her make fools of us in front of everyone. My coworker saw that post, you know it's public, right? She made me look like a monster. No, Colleen, Rosemary snapped. You made yourself look like a monster. Click. Silence. I stood in the kitchen, my hands trembling around a mug of tea I couldn't bring myself to drink. Rosemary came in a moment later, rubbing her forehead. They're spiraling, she said. They're not worried about you, Isla. They're worried about exposure. Money. Shame. I already knew that. But hearing it said aloud somehow made it heavier. That afternoon, I received a message from a blocked number. It was my dad. You have one chance to fix this. Take down the post. Apologize. Or things will get worse for you. Worse? I laughed bitterly. What was worse than being disowned on your birthday? Later, while helping Rosemary rearrange her studio, she casually mentioned the family trust again. Your grandfather started it when Stephen and I were just kids, she said. It's now worth somewhere around $9 million. And he's rewriting it. Right now. My stomach dropped. Because of me? She nodded slowly. You're his granddaughter. His only other legal heir is your father. Everett's furious. Not just about the post, but about the pattern. He said he always suspected something was off, but your parents were good at playing pretend. Now he sees it. Apparently. Grandpa Everett was threatening to cut my parents out of the trust unless they reconciled with me, publicly and sincerely. I should have felt vindicated. Empowered. But instead, I just felt empty. Because it was never about me. It was about image. Money. Control. Even now, they weren't fighting for me, they were fighting around me. Hoping I'd quietly fall back in line so their lives could resume uninterrupted. That night, while scrolling through comments on the post, I found one that made me stop breathing. I know Isla's family. I work with her dad. This post checks out. We've seen how he talks about her, always like she's a burden. It had over 200 likes. My dad's mask was slipping. And people were watching. The next day at school, I kept my head down, until I saw them. My parents. Standing outside the school gates. They were out of place, too polished, too stiff. Like statues placed in the wrong museum. My friends noticed them before I did. Hey. Isla. Are you okay? Want us to walk with you? I nodded. And as we approached, my parents' eyes locked on me. My dad looked furious, my mom looked desperate. Isla, we need to talk, he said tightly. No, I replied. You need to listen. You need to come home with us, my dad hissed through clenched teeth. Trying to keep his voice low enough so nearby students wouldn't hear, but not succeeding. I took a deep breath. I'm not going anywhere with you. My mom's eyes darted nervously to the small crowd forming behind us. Some students were watching from the sidewalk. A few teachers stood near the doors, pretending not to notice. My friends didn't leave my side. Dad leaned in, his voice sharp. You've caused enough trouble. We're not going to do this here. I didn't cause anything, I said calmly. You did. You kicked me out on my birthday. Remember? Mom stepped forward, plastering on a fake smile. Isla, sweetie, let's just talk in the car, okay? We can fix this. I'm not getting in your car, I said. Louder now. Then where should we talk? In front of your little friends, my dad spat. I turned to my friends. Can you give me a minute? They nodded but didn't go far, just enough to give the illusion of space while keeping me within reach. Once they were out of earshot, I folded my arms and stared directly at them. Why are you really here? Mom hesitated. Dad didn't. Because we need you to come back home, he said flatly. I laughed. You didn't need me a week ago. My dad glanced around. As if the trees might be listening. Everett said if we didn't try to reconcile, he'd cut us off. Said he's revising the trust. Said he might even give the whole thing to Rosemary if we didn't make this right. There it was. Not even a second of pretending it was about me. Just straight to the money. I felt a mix of disgust and pity. So, you're not here because you miss me? Or because you regret what you did? You're here because you're afraid of losing Grandpa's money. My mom flinched. That's not true. We're just trying to. Save yourselves, I finished. Yeah. I know. They both went quiet. Dad's jaw twitched. Do you know how bad this has made us look? Do you know what people are saying? My coworker saw your post, Isla. I'm being treated like I abandoned my own child. You did abandon me, I said, voice firm now. You just didn't expect anyone to believe me when I said it. Mom stepped forward again, this time with a softer tone. Look, we can talk this through. You don't have to live with Rosemary forever. You're still our daughter. No. I was your inconvenience. And you gave me away. The silence that followed was brutal. I could see the words hit them, not because they felt guilty. But because they finally realized I wasn't going to cave. I wasn't the quiet, compliant Isla they could pack away like old furniture. I'm staying with Rosemary, I said. And I already talked to Grandpa. He knows everything. And he's not going to let you manipulate your way out of this. My dad's face darkened. You don't get to control this. No, I said simply. But you don't either. Not anymore. I turned and walked away. They called after me, my name, a few empty apologies, even a "we just want what's best" from my mom. But I didn't stop. Back on the bus, I sat near the window, heart pounding, tears brimming but refusing to fall. When I got home, I told Aunt Rosemary everything. She didn't say "I told you so." She didn't ask me to be patient or understanding. She just picked up her phone and called her lawyer. "We're filing for guardianship tomorrow," she said. "I'm not letting them show up at your school again." That night, I called Grandpa Everett. He answered on the first ring. I heard. "From them?" "No. From Eliza. She said they showed up at your school like lunatics." I hesitated. "They're not going to give up the inheritance." He chuckled. "They already lost it. I told them yesterday. If they signed over custody and promised never to contact you again, they'd still get 50%. Otherwise, they get nothing." I was stunned. "And? I'm guessing you'll hear from my lawyer by the end of the week." "Sleep well, kiddo." For the first time in years, I did. 3 days passed after the confrontation outside my school. Things at Aunt Rosemary's were quiet, almost too quiet. I could tell she was tense, waiting for another surprise knock at the door or another dramatic phone call. But nothing came. No texts. No emails. No appearances from my parents. Just silence. Until I got a message. It was from Brielle. "Can you come see me? Please. I need to talk. Just you and me." At first, I stared at the text in disbelief. My sister had barely spoken to me in months. Even before I was kicked out, our conversations were surface level at best, "Pass the salt, nice sweater. What time's dinner?" And yet, she was reaching out. I showed the message to Rosemary. "Go," she said gently. "If you feel safe. Maybe she has something to say that matters." So that afternoon, I took the bus across town to Brielle's apartment, the one she now shared with Damon. It was small but neat. Everything smelled like lavender and baby powder. Brielle opened the door wearing sweatpants, her hair tied in a messy bun, her belly clearly showing now. Her eyes were tired, but not cold. "Thanks for coming," she said softly, stepping aside to let me in. I sat on the edge of the couch while she moved slowly to the armchair across from me. "I'll get right to it," she began, fidgeting with the sleeve of her shirt. "I didn't know about them kicking you out. About any of it." I blinked. "You didn't, what?" She shook her head. "I wasn't there on purpose that morning, I had a prenatal appointment. When I got home, Mom said you wanted to go live with Aunt Rosemary. That you were excited to get away from us." My jaw tightened. The same lie they told everyone. "I didn't find out the truth until after your post went viral," she continued. "Damon showed it to me." I was stunned. I confronted Mom and Dad. I asked if it was true. And they didn't even try to deny it. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her, really looked at her, and tried to figure out if this was guilt or damage control. "I'm not proud of how I treated you," she said finally. "I didn't mean to be one of them. I guess I just got used to being the favorite. It never felt wrong until I saw how badly it hurt you." "You never asked," I said quietly. "You never noticed." "I did," she admitted. "But I told myself you were fine. Because you were quiet. You never complained." I swallowed hard. Because I knew no one would listen. Silence settled between us like a fog. "I moved out," Brielle said suddenly. "A couple days ago. After I found out what they did. I told them I wouldn't raise my child in that kind of environment." I blinked. "Wait, you moved out? You're not living at home anymore?" She nodded. "They didn't take it well. Called me ungrateful. Selfish. Said I was turning my back on the only people who've ever supported me." She laughed bitterly. "Funny, right? They threw you out like garbage, and I'm the one who's ungrateful." I looked down at my hands. There was something strange, maybe even healing, about hearing her say this. Like a window cracked open in a room that had been locked for years. "I'm sorry, Isla," she said, and this time, her voice cracked. "I should have protected you. I should have spoken up years ago. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to tell her it was too late. But instead, all I said was, 'Thank you.'" We sat in silence for a while. And it wasn't awkward. It was honest. Before I left, she walked me to the door and said something I didn't expect. "I'm not them. I never want to be. And I want you in my child's life, if you're ever ready. I nodded. We'll see. As I rode the bus back through the orange haze of sunset, I felt something in me shift. Not forgiveness, not yet. But maybe something close. Closure. When I got back to Aunt Rosemary's, the sky was already turning that soft purple-gray color that only really appears in early spring. The air smelled like pine and promise. Rosemary was in the kitchen finishing a canvas, but she looked up as soon as I walked in. Well, she asked, wiping her hands on a paint-stained towel. She apologized, I said. Brielle didn't know. About them kicking me out. About the lies. She says she moved out. Rosemary blinked. Seriously? I nodded. She even said she wants me in the baby's life. That's actually surprising, she muttered. Maybe there's hope for that one. There was something different in my chest that night. Not exactly peace, not exactly closure, but something close to relief. I had expected anger from Brielle, or at best, defensiveness. But instead, she gave me something no one else in that family ever had, honesty. The next morning, Rosemary got a call from her lawyer, confirming what we'd been waiting for. It's official, she said, holding up her phone with a triumphant smile. Your parents signed the paperwork last night. Custody's being transferred. I'll be your legal guardian by the end of the week. I just stared at her. They actually did it? They did, she said, voice calm. Because Everett gave them a choice. Sign over custody and get 50% of their original inheritance, or lose everything. So they picked the money, I said flatly. She gave me a look, not pity, but something more grounded. They always were predictable. I sat down at the kitchen table and stared at my hands. I thought I'd feel something more. Anger. Satisfaction. A sense of justice. But all I really felt was tired. Rosemary noticed. She poured me tea and sat down beside me. You're allowed to feel weird about this, she said. You're not broken for being sad about people who failed you. That hit me harder than I expected. I didn't cry. I just nodded. 2 days later, Grandpa Everett called me directly. Not just a short message this time, a full conversation. You doing okay, kiddo? He asked. I think so, I said. It's a lot. I know. And I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. You couldn't have known. I should have, he said firmly. I always had a bad feeling about how they talked about you. But your mom and dad, they're good at smiling in public. That made me laugh a little. Yeah. They are. Listen, Isla, he said, his voice lowering. You don't have to worry about them anymore. I made sure everything's protected. Your education. Your living expenses. Even your college fund. It's all set aside under Rosemary's name, and you'll get full access when you're 18. My mouth fell open. Wait, seriously? Seriously. I'm not going to let their choices ruin your future. You deserve better. No one had ever said that to me before. Thank you, I whispered. And Isla? Yeah? I'm proud of you. For speaking up. For surviving. And for choosing the truth, even when it hurt. After that call, I walked out to the backyard. The woods behind Rosemary's house were quiet, full of birdsong and branches swaying gently in the breeze. I sat on the little swing hanging from the oak tree and watched the sun move through the leaves. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a guest in someone else's world. I felt grounded. Like this place, and these people, were mine. That night, I wrote another blog post. Not to rage. Not to vent. But just to tell the truth. I titled it, How I Found a Home Without Going Back. I wrote about Brielle, about the custody transfer, about how healing isn't linear and family isn't always who raises you, sometimes it's who rescues you. Who listens when no one else does. The post didn't go viral like the first one. But it didn't need to. Because this one wasn't for anyone else. It was for me. Spring in Portland has a strange magic. It's the way the sunlight filters through the clouds like it's shy but still hopeful, like the world is slowly learning to be gentle again. That's how I felt too. Gentle. And new. 2 weeks after the custody transfer was finalized, Aunt Rosemary and I had a small celebration. Nothing fancy, just the two of us in her garden. Sipping sparkling apple cider and laughing over burnt brownies. She handed me a little box tied with string. Inside was a necklace. A small silver charm in the shape of an open book. Engraved with 3 words on the back. You belong here. I saw it at a craft market months ago, she said, brushing away a tear. And I don't know why, but I bought it. I think. I was just waiting for you to show up. That was the first time I cried in front of her. Not because I was sad, but because for once, I felt wanted. Not tolerated. Not managed. Not pushed to the side. Wanted. Life wasn't suddenly perfect. The damage didn't just vanish because someone signed a paper. There were still nights when I woke up with knots in my stomach. Dreams filled with slammed doors and voices that called me a burden. But there were also new things now. Like Rosemary's Sunday art sessions, where we painted side by side in silence. Our brushes tapping softly like a heartbeat. Or the email I got from Grandpa Everett's attorney, letting me know I'd been officially added to his educational trust and that he was starting a travel fund in my name, just in case I ever wanted to see more of the world. Or the day I got an acceptance letter to a creative writing program at the local college, not for full enrollment, just a summer intensive, but still, something that felt like a doorway opening. And Brielle? She texted me updates every few days. Nothing heavy, just baby kicks, cravings, nesting progress. We weren't close yet, but we were, better. Real. I visited her once. She'd set up a small nursery in the corner of her apartment, and she'd printed out a photo of the two of us from when I was 10, one of the few where we were actually smiling. She told me she'd frame it next to the crib. I want my baby to grow up knowing who you are, she said. Not just what our parents tried to make you. I didn't have words for that. I just hugged her. And for the first time, it didn't feel like I was hugging a stranger. Then, one quiet Saturday, I got an email from my dad. No subject line. No apology. Just, this. You got what you wanted. I hope it was worth it. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not angry. Not shaken. Just, disappointed. Because even now, he still didn't get it. It wasn't about getting what I wanted. It was about finally seeing what I deserved. And choosing it. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. A few nights later, I stood on Rosemary's porch with a mug of tea in my hands and the stars above me. She came out and leaned on the railing beside me. You ever think about what you'll say, one day, when someone asks about all this? She asked softly. I smiled. Yeah. I think I'll say that the day my parents gave me up was the day I found myself. That I lost a house, but I gained a home. She nodded. And a family. I looked at her. At last. Sometimes. People ask me how I managed to stay so quiet for so long. Why I didn't speak up sooner. Why I let it go that far. The answer is simple. I didn't know I could. But now? Now I do. And I'll never let myself be erased again. What moment in Isla's journey resonated with you most? Was it the confrontation at school, the letter from Grandpa? Or the quiet redemption with her sister? Share your favorite part in the comments, and tell us, what does home mean to you?